Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the fear controlling your entire life is not the fear of failure, but the fear of being disliked. Imagine discovering that the real prison you have lived in is not built from your circumstances, background, or limitations, but from the invisible expectations of people who don't even think about you as much as you imagine. And imagine learning that the one thing you have been running from, the one thing you have been taught to avoid at all costs, is actually the secret doorway to peace, freedom, and power. This is the courage to be disliked. Most people approach this book as a motivational guide about letting go of external validation. But today we are going far deeper, beyond the common explanations, beyond the usual comfort zone of self-help, and into a perspective that most readers never even touch. This is not just a book about confidence. It is a psychological reset. It is a dismantling of a mental system that is quietly shaping modern culture, especially in the age of social media, comparison, outrage addiction, curated perfection, and performance identity. This is a book that demands we confront a painful but liberating truth. The people you are trying so hard to please cannot save you from the weight of your own unexamined beliefs. Pause for a moment and think about the last time you hesitated to express your opinion, the last time you changed your personality depending on who you were with, the last time you held back your real self to avoid sounding odd, emotional, different, imperfect, or too honest. Think about how many dreams you have strangled because you were afraid of standing out in a world that punishes boldness and rewards conformity. Think about the invisible checklist in your mind that constantly whispers, "Be careful, don't upset anyone, don't be too much, don't be too loud, don't be too real." Now realize that this checklist is not yours. It was installed by a world that profits from your fear. The Courage to be Disliked is not a book that simply tells you to stop caring what people think. That interpretation is shallow. The deeper message is that every human being constructs a private life narrative, a personal life task, shaped not by destiny but by choice, shaped not by what happened to you but by the meaning you gave to what happened. Modern society has trapped us inside a narrative that constantly pushes two lies. The first lie is that our past dictates our identity. The second lie is that our worth is measured by external approval. This book crushes both lies and offers something far more radical. Freedom is not something given to you by changing your circumstances. Freedom is something claimed by changing the story you tell yourself about who you are. We live in a world obsessed with trauma, labels, and psychological explanations for every pain, every decision, every emotion. And while understanding the past can be helpful, this book reminds us that using the past as a reason to avoid living fully is a form of self-rejection. It is a way of saying my past is my master. But what if your past is not the author of your life? What if you are? What if responsibility is not a burden but a doorway? What if taking full ownership of your life is not about blaming yourself but about liberating yourself? This is the heart of the Courage to be Disliked. It is not about arrogance or rebellion. It is about reclaiming authorship of your story. In the United States, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, across every culture in the world, we are witnessing a rise in anxiety, depression, people-pleasing, social withdrawal, and quiet quitting. The pressure to fit in has never been stronger. The fear of being judged has never been more intense. People now micromanage their entire personality based on the fear of getting cancelled, misunderstood, or disliked. And slowly, without realizing it, we are trading authenticity for safety, trading individuality for approval, trading freedom for a fragile sense of belonging. This book challenges that trade. It tells us that the moment you surrender your authenticity for acceptance, you lose both. One of the boldest insights in the book is that interpersonal relationships are the foundation of human happiness, but not in the way we assume. We tend to think relationships require us to please others, avoid conflict, and constantly adjust ourselves to be accepted. But the authors argue that real relationships are built on separation, not fusion. Meaningful relationships require boundaries, not compliance. The Courage to be Disliked is the courage to let people have their opinions while you live your truth. It is the courage to walk away from situations where your soul is shrinking. It is the courage to choose peace over approval, direction over distraction, purpose over applause. Take a moment and imagine a version of yourself who is unbothered by online opinions, who posts without fear, who speaks without shrinking, who creates without permission, who chooses opportunities without waiting for validation. who sets boundaries without guilt, who sees rejection as redirection, and who understands that being disliked is not a punishment, but a signal that you are finally becoming your truest self. That version of you is not imaginary. It is simply less conditioned by fear. Most people misunderstand the idea of tasks in Adlerian psychology. This book uses the concept of separating your life tasks from the tasks of others. In today's world, this concept is revolutionary. We live in a culture where people mix their responsibilities with the expectations of others. You feel responsible for how people interpret your decisions, responsible for other people's emotional reactions, responsible for being liked. But the book makes one thing clear: your task is your choice. Their feelings are their task. The moment you stop carrying what is not yours, you stop drowning in unnecessary weight. Millions of people cannot sleep at night because they replay conversations in their head, trying to imagine how they should have responded differently, how they could have made someone happier, how they could have avoided being judged. But this is the mental habit of someone who has not yet embraced the courage to be disliked. When you accept that you cannot control how anyone sees you, you free yourself from the impossible mission of trying to be universally accepted. No matter who you are, someone will misunderstand you, someone will dislike you, someone will judge you unfairly. But those reactions say everything about them and nothing about your worth. And let me say this now: if nobody dislikes you, you are playing life too small. You are hiding too much. You are staying silent too often. You are polishing yourself into a harmless version of who you were meant to be. Greatness does not come from trying to blend in. It comes from being brave enough to stand out. Let's go deeper. We live in a world where influence has become currency. Think about how people curate their identity for trends, how they shape their personality to be more acceptable, more marketable, more palatable. People are terrified of criticism, terrified of negative comments, terrified of disappointing strangers online, terrified of being seen as wrong, unpolished, or imperfect. But here is the paradox: the more you try to avoid being disliked, the more disconnected you become from yourself. The more you seek universal approval, the more you lose the approval of the one person who matters most, yourself. Here is the psychological truth: human beings become anxious not because the world is hostile, but because they try to control things that were never theirs to control. You try to control how people see you. You try to control what people think about your choices. You try to control their reactions, their opinions, their feelings. And in doing so, you trap yourself. You live inside a mental cage where every action is pre-filtered through the question, will they like me? But the courage to be disliked is the courage to replace that question with a better one. Does this align with who I want to become? Let's talk about the modern world. In 2024 and 2025, people are exhausted. They are tired of pretending, tired of fitting into invisible boxes, tired of curating their happiness, tired of being polite at the expense of their truth, tired of saying yes when their soul is screaming no. We have reached a cultural tipping point where authenticity is not just valuable, it is necessary for survival. And this book gives us permission to choose authenticity without apology. Think about where you are in your life right now. Think about the dreams you abandoned because you feared judgment. Think about the things you want to say but keep inside because you worrying someone will misinterpret your intentions. Think about how many times you have edited yourself to be more socially acceptable, more digestible, more likable. Now imagine what your life would look like if you stopped doing that. Imagine the career you would pursue, the people you would stop trying to impress, the boundaries you would set, the passions you would follow, the risks you would take. Imagine the freedom. The courage to be disliked is not the courage to isolate yourself. It is the courage to show up as yourself. And when you show up as yourself, something powerful happens. You attract people who value you for who you are. You attract relationships that don't require you to shrink. You attract opportunities that align with your identity instead of your fear. And yes, you also attract some criticism. But that criticism becomes irrelevant because you are no longer living for the audience. You are living for your mission. This book also offers a surprising insight. The root of most interpersonal conflicts is the desire for superiority. Even people-pleasing can be a hidden form of superiority because you believe your actions can control how others feel. But real freedom comes when you release the illusion of control and embrace horizontal relationships. A horizontal relationship is not about dominance or submission. It is about equality. It is about saying, I am me, you are you. And we can coexist without needing to control each other. Let's bring this into a relatable example. Imagine a young woman afraid to pursue her passion because she fears her family will label her irresponsible. Imagine a young man hiding his creativity because he fears his friends will call him unrealistic. Imagine a professional trapped in a job they hate because they fear disappointing society's expectations. These people are not lacking talent or desire. They are lacking the courage to be disliked. And sometimes that fear runs deep. Childhood validation patterns become adult prisons. The need for approval becomes a personality. And slowly, you start shaping your life around the expectations of others. But you deserve more than a life built from fear. You deserve a life built from authenticity. The courage to be disliked is the courage to begin again. It is the courage to rewrite your life task. It is the courage to say, I choose direction over approval. One, choose purpose over perfection. I choose inner peace over external applause, and the moment you choose this, you begin to live differently. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to think differently. You begin to rise. So let me leave you with this truth. The world does not need a version of you that is safe. The world needs a version of you that is real. And when you choose to live as your fullest self, you will lose some people. You will trigger some people. You will disappoint some people. But you will find yourself. And that is a price worth paying. Now, if this video has opened your mind, expanded your perspective and reminded you of who you could become, then do something simple but powerful. Like this video, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another upload. Your journey to freedom begins now, and it begins with the courage to be disliked.